seeing as this is a classic episode, I'm gonna talk to you about another classic Charlie topic of conversation, being Batman.
Yep. I wonder if I went back and looked at every cold open that we've ever done. I wonder how many are about Batman. It's probably like 25%.
I was gonna say like 30% of them will have been about Batman.
It's definitely more about Batman than any other topic. No other topic is remotely close on the proportionality scale.
Yeah, but Batman's cool. He's got a cape and everything. Do you have a cape? Didn't think so.
I don't. Do you have a cape? It'd be weird if you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my hidden cape that I keep for special occasions.
I wouldn't actually. I take it back. I wouldn't be surprised if you actually had a cape, because
I would love to have a cape. That sounds awesome. I'm a cool guy. But the Batman story I want to talk to you about is Batman Fortress. Batman Fortress came out, and I think it started publishing in 2021. I read it as it came out. It's an 8-issue miniseries, unconnected to anything, no continuity, no nothing, right? I read it as it came out, and I thought, this is good. It's weird, but it's good. It's fine, and then I stopped reading it. And the other day I decided I'm going to read through it again, right? And so I got all 8 issues down from my bookshelf, and I read the first 2, and I was like, oh, I'll put it down. And I ended up reading all 8 issues in one sitting. It is the Michael Bay equivalent of a Batman movie. It's very weird.
A lot of action, explosions, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers.
If there were Ninja Turtles, that'd be sick. There are no Ninja Turtles. There are no Transformers. There is action. It's just like, it's a 90s action movie, but a comic book, and with, instead of like Will Smith in it, it's Batman, so Batman's got like a weird personality where he's like really dry and has a very dry sense of humor, but he's still silly. Like at one point Alfred's like, how was Gotham, sir? Oh, sir, how was Gotham? How Alfred does his thing. And Batman looks at him in his big Batman costume after he just got out of the Batmobile and says, "Cry me." How was Gotham, sir? Cry me.
That's a writer on a deadline. He probably wrote that in there. He's like, I'll come up with something funny later, and then forgot to come back and change that line.
Yeah.
And he submitted it, and he's like, I'll just have to stand by it, I guess. There's nothing I can do here.
And there's another point in time, because the whole thing is like, there's a worldwide blackout, right? None of the electronics are working, and Superman's gone. None of them.
What happened?
Batman's electronics work because he's Batman.
Yeah, I forgot.
But like, hospitals don't work or anything like that. Radios don't work and shit like that. No one has a phone, but Batman's like fucking jet works.
Yeah, Batman can still scroll through TikTok.
Yes, he's on TikTok all day long. And so they got to figure out why the fuck that this alien spaceship showed up and cut off all the electricity. And they also have to figure out where Superman is, because he's missing, And so it, like, the latter half of the book is effectively just like a heist, but of the Fortress of Solitude. So they break into the Fortress of Solitude, which is a cool, like, premise. But they pick weird characters. It was very obviously DC editorial was like, we're pushing these characters. You have to pick these. And they're like, okay, fine, whatever. But at one point, Batman does say the line verbatim, "I'm putting together a crew, and I want you to be on it."
Right? Classic heist movie.
Exactly. It is a heist movie. It reads like the Independence Day of Batman comics.
Did they drive really fast cars and talk about family and hold out Coronas for the camera?
They should talk about Coronas and the family. No, it does have the one of the craziest last page reveals I've ever seen. Which is just, you spend the entire book, Batman is Batman, and he's got lots of knowledge and skills and gadgets and shit, but he's a guy, and he's got a broken arm for for a significant amount of the book, and all this weird shit. And at the very end, turns out Superman gave his superpowers back to Batman, and so Batman's Superman now. And that's the final page, and they just leave. And I'm like, that's fucking crazy. It's an insane ending.
Superman able to just give his powers to somebody? Like, here you go.
Yeah. He's got a special, a device in the Fortress of Solitude that lets him, turn off his powers. And turns out it also lets him send his powers to other people. Right? And I'm like, cool, I guess. But why in the fuck did you let Crypto run around with superpowers? You dick.
Take away the dog's, that's not doing anything bad. Take away the
dog's superpowers. If you have the ability to take away superpowers, take away the dog's superpowers. It wants to go sniff buttholes and stuff. Be a normal ass dog. Well, and you're making it solve crimes and shit? Come on. Leave the dog alone.
Yeah, give Crypto superpowers to Batman's dog. Yeah, that's a real crime dog.
Ace the Bat Hound. He's the best. I love Ace the Bat Hound. And the book also ends with Batman being Superman had a rule against interfering with world events and stopping wars and governments and stuff. But I don't. I'm gonna overthrow so many governments right now with my Superman powers. And I'm like, dude, the end of the book, it's supposed to be all hopeful and optimistic about the future, but it sounds a bit too fascistic for that. It's weird. It's a very strange book, but I would recommend people pick it up if they have the ability.
Huh.
And you want to know what else people can pick up, Jacob? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles Long. With me, as always, my co-host, our producer, co-pilot, gun navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell, Charles. Excited. Another podcast, another episode 249. Very exciting.
49, baby.
You
yeah,
have got a new pitch. Exciting. What is it titled?
Very exciting. Splatterpunk 2.
Splatterpunk.
That's right. We're doing
2.
a sequel series to Splatterpunk, episode 88. I do believe this is the longest we have ever taken to do a sequel series to anything.
Probably. Yeah. There's nothing. I waited a long time between Res Publica season 2 and 3, but this is episode 249, and I made you write a second episode to episode 88, so
88.
That's
so I had to go back and I had to re-listen to it and all sorts of fun stuff, and I had a wealth of ideas.
All right.
I honestly
should you give us the audience a refresher on the story of Splatterpunk 1?
You're right. Splatterpunk is a TV show about two serial killers who live in a van together, right? The Slaughtermobile. And they travel across the country and they commit murders. And their shtick is that each murder has a different trophy taken, right? So, in one murder, they'll take somebody's hair, and the next murder, they'll take somebody's eyes, right? Shit like that. So they're much harder to track. Right? And these two serial killers are named Stephen Miller and Stephan Milner, right? And they basically are platonic best friends, sort of. They're serial killers, so they're horrible people, and they're terrible with human contact, but they are best friends, and they do care about each other. And so they've got kind of an old married couple, the odd couple sort of a vibe going. Yeah. But it's also horrific murders are happening in the background. So it's and then they have a Detective Monroe, who is chasing them across the country because she is the only detective who is smart enough to put together that this is a series of killings committed by the same two people rather than being a whole bunch of unconnected murders, you know?
Yeah.
And Splatterpunk, season 1, episode 88 was a fun show. It was definitely a little rough around the edges, for sure. I hadn't really cracked what I needed to for each show. You know, I hadn't figured out exactly what I needed to know about each TV show before I pitched it. So there's not really a whole lot of thematic elements to it, but it's definitely a TV show, and I think it's fun.
I thought it was really good.
It
was one of my favorite shows that you did. And also, I really liked the ending of the first season.
Yes, the ending. If you remember, at the very end, Stephen Miller, right, is captured by Detective Monroe, and Stephan Milner is standing in front over a overlook, an edge into the water, right? I'm assuming in like California, and he looks down over the water and sees the choppy, shark-infested water below, and he looks over at Detective Monroe with her gun trained on him, and he dives into the water, right? Evading capture, but possibly leaping to his death, right? And so it's left very ambiguous, except for the fact that the last, last shot of the show is him in South America, right? And he's got a funny hat on, and he's got a brand new slaughtermobile, and he is driving, across South America, right? And so we leave enough open that there could be a sequel, but not so much open that you need to have a sequel,
Yeah.
And that's a fun way to end anything with the serial killer in it. Any horror adjacent media ending that way is fun, is good and fun. This season 2, it took work to figure out how it was going to work.
Oh.
It took a bit of effort, right?
Oh.
Because I had 3 distinct ideas. So sad.
So sad.
Oh my God.
Remember when you made me
sad.
write Respublica season 4?
Remember when I made you write fucking Fahrenheit 451?
No, Respublica's the one because I had to read a book. Charlie. A book. For a pitch.
I have never read a book, and
I had 1 week. I've got other things in my life. When you made me read a book.
It's so funny. You should have written that. You should have written it earlier than when you remembered the book.
I should have, but I didn't feel like reading the book again.
Well, too bad. I will make you read so many books. Next week, you have to write a TV show about the Bible.
Yeah, so you just give me a title.
So you have to read the whole Bible.
I can just do whatever.
The Bible. You can do whatever you want now. Unless I give you Res Publica season 5, which would be
I don't even remember where season 4 is. That'd be a problem.
Me neither. If I had to guess, Romans.
Yeah, no shit.
But this show, season 2, I was struggling to put together what it was going to be about, right? Because my first thought was, what if I took Detective Monroe and Stephan, and I teamed them up, right? And so they were enemies, and now they're a team, and they're tracking a new serial killer across America,
it's
right?
Like
so
Frank
you still...
Abagnale and Tom Hanks' character in
Exactly, Abagnale.
Abagnale.
In Catch Me If You Can, yeah. So that was my initial idea. And as I was working through it, I couldn't figure out a good way for them to meet, right? Like, I couldn't come up with a good way for them to, team up.
Yeah.
They're looking for a new serial killer.
Yeah, he is a serial killer. It's not like Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Catch Me If You Can, where it's like he didn't murder people. This guy murdered people.
He murdered a lot of people, right? And it's like, why would he come back to America to team up with somebody who is actively chasing him, right? Like, I couldn't figure that one out. So I dropped that idea. No longer shall there be a buddy comedy between a detective and a serial killer. All right? No. And then I was like, well, what is Splatterpunk, really? I was like, it's pitch black comedy. It's buddy, comedy. It's buddy, two guys hanging out, right? It's musical. It's horrifying, right? There's lots of gross, horrible murders that happen. So I was really considering doing an anthology series and making Splatterpunk Season 2 about two completely different killers, right? But I was talking with somebody about it, and she was basically like, are you just doing it again? And I'm like, I don't want to do that, right? And so I have a different idea that's kind of a blending of all these different ideas, right?
Oh.
A blending together in a way that makes them more palatable, I would say, to me, if nothing else. The show starts, right?
Oh.
It just starts. There's no title sequence yet, right? You're in a darkened room, and there is one woman sitting in a black veil, right? In this darkened room, in these fold-out lawn chairs, right? The lights come on, and you see that she is in the observation deck of an execution room.
Oh.
Right? Stephen Miller is walked out of his cell and placed into the electric chair. Right?
Not Stephen.
They try and put the bag over his head, right? And he refuses. And he stares at this woman through this one-sided glass, right? And is electrocuted to death.
Okay. Damn.
No longer is anyone with the name Stephen Miller alive. And he smiles the entire time he's electrocuted, right? You can see his teeth crack and, grind together as the volts run through his body, and his hair begins to singe, and his eyeballs begin to smoke, and he just smiles. Cut to, a man is buried from the neck down in the woods, right? A hooded, silhouetted figure. He's not hooded. I mean, he's hooded, but he's not like in a Klan hood or anything like that. He's in just like a hoodie.
Yeah.
A silhouetted man walks up with a sledgehammer, right? The man who's buried from the neck down in the dirt begins to beg and plead and offer money and women and power and anything that this guy might want, right? And the man holding the sledgehammer over his head, over his shoulder, takes the hood off, right? And he smiles and he looks down at the guy. He says, I don't want your money. I don't want your power or your women or any of that. And the man tearfully looks up and says, well, what do you want? And Stephan Milner, we're just going to call him Stephan, looks down and he smiles. And he says, I want your teeth. And he swings the sledgehammer down onto the man who's buried from the neck down in the dirt and cracks his skull open. And as the blood oozes and just explodes out of his skull, it gets onto the camera and then it drips down. And in the remnants of the blood, Splatterpunk is written.
Oh, hell yeah.
Season 2. Ooh, yeah. And that's how the show starts, right? Mm-hmm. And then we'll see Stephan, right? He's putting together the teeth in his hand. He's sitting back in his new and improved slaughtermobile. And he's looking through his hand, and he's looking at the teeth, and he starts sticking them in something out of frame, right? Something that's sitting in the passenger side seat. And you can hear the voice of Stephen talking, mocking him from off camera. And he ignores it at first, but after a while he has to turn and he says, shut up or stop talking or whatever, right? And you can see that there's this horrific mannequin that has been stapled on and covered with the body parts of various murder victims.
Oh, boy.
Right? And so it is obvious now that Stephan is building some sort of a horrible murder doll to make up for his partner in crime being killed, right? And so he looks over at this mannequin, he starts screaming at it, right? And the naked head of the thing that maybe it just has somebody's scalp on it and like a left eye, and that's it, right? The naked, horrific head of this thing just like slunches over, right? Not, obviously it's not like alive or anything like that. The head just like moves, right? And looks at him. And Stephan looks at it. And he just whispers to himself, "Shut up." And then he starts the Slaughtermobile and begins driving. And he's in the middle of Pennsylvania, right? In the middle of buttfuck nowhere in Pennsylvania, right? And he drives and he drives and he drives. And now we meet our brand new character. The newest and most fun brand new character, Brandon Lee. I just realized that Brandon Lee is a guy who played the Crow and died. I truly didn't mean that to happen. It's just, I was just writing a name and that's what happened. But Brandon Lee is a young upstart detective who has a hunch
upstart actor.
About three.
He's got a new role.
Yes, related to Bruce Lee. He's this young, smart, sexy detective, right? And he's working for the FBI, sort of like the what's her name in Silence of the Lambs. What's her name?
Like a
Clarice.
special agent. Okay. Oh, you meant Jodie Foster's name.
Yeah. He's working for the FBI, right? And he is a analyst and just an investigator, right? For the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And he has this hunch that these 3 separate murders are connected somehow, but he just can't figure it out, right? He doesn't understand how these murders can be connected. But it just something tells him that they are. Because one murder, this person's missing their teeth. The other murder, they're missing their left eye. Another murder, they're missing their like right bicep. What's going on? It doesn't make any sense. But there's somebody who might have an inkling, somebody who has a deep and twisted knowledge of the mind of a killer, of a psychopath, right? And that would be Detective Monroe from the first season of Splatterpunk. And so he decides to go visit her. She is currently teaching law. Like she's working at the local law school. And what she
What?
Yeah, she just works as a professor in the criminal justice department at the local law school, where she's working in Philadelphia.
Oh.
I know.
Okay.
Who is that? What happens? I don't know. You're the one who's actually in law school.
What is?
Do you have a criminal? Yeah.
I don't understand what you're asking. Is there a criminal?
I'm asking you, is there a criminal justice department of the law school that you go to?
There's criminal law professors. I don't.
All
they
right.
don't call it criminal it's not a criminal justice department. They're just criminal law professors. There's no department.
All right. And would it be insane if one of those people was not, in fact, a lawyer, but was, in fact, a grizzled, super famous detective who has written a series of novels based off of her nationwide manhunt of the Slaughtermobile killers?
They wouldn't work at a law school if they don't have a law degree. But so maybe they can work. She can just be a criminal justice professor at a normal university and not a law school.
That was going to be my compromise. Yeah. I don't know why I was invested in her working at a law school. I just was. But Brandon Lee understands that this lady has a really in-depth knowledge of the mind of killers, right? And so he thinks these murders are connected, but he can't prove it. And so he's going to go talk to her to see if maybe she'll be able to help him figure something out, put some pieces together, right? So he goes to the university. He knocks on Detective Monroe's office door, and he walks in. And she's sitting at her desk, right? Papers scattered everywhere. Everything in this office is a mess, except for one lovely little sand garden that sits on her desk, and she's just casually playing with it, basically, just dragging the rake through the sand garden. She looks up, and she's got an eye patch now, also. I don't know why it's important to me that Detective Monroe now has an eye patch, but she's older. She's probably about 5-10 years older than she was. She looks 15 to 20 years older than she was. Like, hair is starting to gray and all this stuff, and she's got an eye patch, and she is just tacitly ignoring all of the papers in her office and playing with her Zen sand garden, right? Brandon Lee walks in, and he says, Detective Monroe, would I be able to talk to you for a few minutes? And she looks almost excited that somebody is here to break up the mundanity and the boredom of her life as a teacher, right? I mean, she doesn't fucking grade papers. She chases killers. That's what she's built for. That's her, that's her passion in life. And she has, resigned herself to being this, like, school marm, right? And so she's excited to talk to Lee about these killings, right? It's adding a little bit of joy to her life, right? And so she's tearing through the files that he's brought her. Meanwhile, Lee is talking, just casually having a conversation with her about the killings and how he thinks they might be connected. He has a hunch, but he can't prove it, and blah, 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 blah. And she, tearing through these papers, and she gets even more excited. You can see her single eye twitching, right, with anticipation, right? And she, having studied and worked with and dealt with the Slaughtermobile killers for so long, right? She can recognize this. This is the work of Stephan. He's not dead. I thought he drowned to death in those shark-infested waters. Oh. No, he's back. He's alive.
Bringing it back.
And he's killing again. Why? What's his point? What's the message? And she is enthralled with the mystery, right? And so Lee is talking to her about it, and he's like, it's okay. It's not like it's my job. You're the professor. She basically invites herself onto the case, right?
Like a consultant is where she's like claiming
exactly,
first,
and she is like,
it slowly develops.
I'm doing this because Lee, let me tell you something. You are not built for these people. I can tell you right now. I met you 5 minutes ago, and I can tell you you're not ready to deal with the kind of monsters that this guy is, right? Stephan is a psychopath through and through. There is nothing good in him, And if you don't have me on this case, right, you are going to be lost. And so Lee kind of begrudgingly accepts her help, right? And she goes back to playing with her sand garden with a little bit more enthusiasm and joy. And he asks about it because it's weird. Why does it say Stephan on it? And she looks up at him and she says, well, that's Stephen Miller. He's like, what are you talking about? I was the closest thing he had to family, the closest thing that would put up with him. So the prison let me keep his ashes. And I made a little Zen garden. And so this man who provided me so much anxiety and stress in my life is now doing his work, doing his part to calm me down a little bit.
That's really fucked up, Charlie.
And so
just gonna let you know, that's
she drags the rake through the Zen garden one more time, right? Cut to Stephan, right? He's driving through. He's eating a cheeseburger, right? He's shoving a second cheeseburger into the gaping maw of this horrific meat mannequin, right? And trying to have a conversation with it.
That'd be funny. And if I can interrupt you real quick, if he shoves the cheeseburger in his mouth, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry, Stephen," and he takes it out, takes off the pickles, puts it back in.
That would be funny. That's actually very funny. And every once in a while when he's eating the burger and he's talking with Stephan, right? And every once in a while he'll turn over and it'll just be this horrible mannequin with like teeth and eyes and hair sticking out of it in horrible places, right? And then he'll turn away, take another bite, eat a handful of fries, look back, and it'll be Stephan again.
Yeah, just
right?
munching on a hamburger.
Sitting there, having a good time, chatting, making jokes, listening to songs, right? Like they did in the good old days, like they did before life all went to hell, right? Back in the halcyon days of their youths, even though it was like 5 years ago, right? And Stephan is driving down the highway, right? Singing along with whatever's on the radio. Stephan is joining him, right? And then as the car drives, we pull the camera back into the back of the van and we can see 3 or 4 people, right? Arms tied up above their heads, blindfolds, gags in their mouths, just screaming silently into the darkness as Stephan sings along with the radio. End of the pilot. All right. That's the end of the things I've written with regards to like an actual plot. I do have an idea of where it's going, right? In regards to like season-wide things. Obviously, Stephan is going to be killing across America again, trying to recapture it. I have it written down that this is effectively the serial killer version of a midlife crisis, right? Like he's trying to recapture his youth and his joy that he felt when he was killing across America with Stephan, right? And this was obviously kicked off by Stephan's killing, but his execution by the state. And so Stephan's going to be killing across America again, and Lee and Monroe will now be following him and trying to figure it out, right? And in the first season, you had Monroe teamed up with like a rich sort of trust fund kid whose lover had been killed by the Slaughtermobile killers, and so he had a vested interest in getting him, right? But his name was Butterface, right? And Butterface was kind of naive and stupid and really worked as a foil to Monroe being like a cynical, grizzled detective. But now Monroe is the more excitable of the two because she's just gotten so bored of like academia, right? I imagine she's kind of like in Indiana Jones professor mode, right? Like when you see Indiana Jones as an actual college professor, he's bored out of his goddamn mind because he's so used to dodging boulders and shit, right? So she's kind of more excited about this, and she's like, ooh, but this and this and this and this, right? Whereas Lee is more of a like resigned professional, He's young and he's inexperienced, but he is following like the rules and regulations. He's not excited about it, right? He's never excited about a murder, right? Whereas Monroe is actually like, oh, we found a new body. This adds something to the case, right? And also I'll have it be so Monroe, after the Slaughtermobile killings, right? She wrote a series of books recounting her journey following these killers, as well as like she spent her time like tracking down new serial killers,
Yeah.
So that was an interim story that she had, right?
It'd be kind of interesting if like the way you set up their relationship is like, because he's younger and inexperienced, and he's while he's like sort of resigned about like his duties, he's a bit more. He doesn't like when he sees a dead body, it affects him like emotionally. And for her, she's almost like the serial killers in that it doesn't affect her at all. Like she has an academic interest in the serial killers and what they're doing. And it's just beyond her ability to understand like the raw emotions of it anymore.
And like maybe like the first body they find, Lee like throws up, right? And has to like leave the scene, and she's just sitting there with a pen and a paper writing things down and like really intently getting close up to like a horrifically mutilated corpse. And it's like, what? Okay.
Yeah. That could be a great scene. Like, they go into the room, like, he sees the body, and he's, like, queasy right away, and she's, like, writing stuff down, and she's, like, she tells him to go grab something from the car, and he, like, goes out as quick as he can, and he just vomits immediately into the dumpster.
Yeah.
And, like, takes a moment to, like, you know, gather himself, grabs his whatever she asked for, and then comes back in.
And she, like, smells the air and is like, Jesus Christ, you smell like shit. Right? And she keeps writing things down. Like, she knows he threw up because, you know, she's dealt with rookies before. And I think it would thematically be appropriate that it ends in the same place that season 1 ended, right? With, like, they're killing across America, and they find each other, and they're in California again, right? And Stephan is holding on to his horrible mannequin that is almost complete, right? All it needs is, like, a heart or something, like some, like, good thematic body part, right? And he's holding on to the thing, and Monroe's got her gun trained on him, right? And all this stuff. And she says, like, she tells him, I know why you did this, right? I researched you. I looked you up, right? In Brazil. Turns out this murder marathon wasn't actually kicked off by Stephen's death, right? Stephen doesn't really matter to Stephan. Stephen is simply a totem of Stephan's own, like, memories of his time in the murder-mobile.
Yeah.
Right? This was kicked off by Stephan's wife leaving him. In the interim time of living in South America, Stephan stopped being a serial killer. He stopped killing people entirely, and he got married, and he had a child, right? He had a little girl who he loved. It was the first time he had ever truly felt love before, and he loved this little girl, right? And one day, his wife, who is caring and thoughtful, but always kind of understood Stephan wasn't a normal guy, who was just casually cleaning the house when she found a journal, a weird, strange, leatherback journal, hidden underneath of Stephan's pillow, and she begins to flip through it, and she reads it. She understands, she sees that this is a journal memorializing the Splattermobile killings, right? This is what he reads every night before he goes to bed. This is his idea of a nice bedtime story, is remembering all of the horrific fucking murders that he committed with Stephen, right?
Yeah.
And she finds this, and she keeps it to herself for a few days, but after a while, she just can't stand the idea of this guy being in charge of her and her children, right? Like, she can't abide by it, right? And so she tells him, I found the notebook, and I'm leaving. I'm done. I can't be with you. And if you try to come close to me or my daughter, I'm calling the police, and I'll tell them everything, right? And so Stephan, not wanting to, like, get to traumatize his daughter or anything like that, because this is the one person he truly does care about, is his daughter, he leaves. And he decides that he is no longer going to live. He is going to die. He's going to end his life, and he's going to end his life doing what he loves, which is killing, right? And so after all this, like, this big reveal that it's, like, actually why, right? You have Stephan holding his mannequin, like his murder mannequin, right? On the cliff's edge, right? And Monroe has her gun trained on him. And he holds the mannequin, and he looks into its two misshapen, malformed, horrific meat eyes, right? And it looks at him, and then the camera cuts, and then you look back, and he's holding Stephen again, right? And Stephen gives him a wink. And then Stephan lets go of the mannequin, and it falls into the shark-infested waters of which he once used to escape, right? And he's gunned down by the police as he attempts to reach into his back pocket, right? Splatterpunk 2. Everyone's
and then they
dead.
Get to the body.
No one...
And it's the journal that he was reaching for.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something, yeah. Or a picture of his daughter or something like that.
Yeah.
Something cool and, like, emotional. Right?
Not a gun.
And Lee is now the co-author of Monroe's newest book, right? About the Slaughtermobile Killings 2.0. Splatterpunk 2. That's the show. I hope it was worth the wait, everyone.
I don't think they knew there was a wait. I know you didn't know there was a wait.
I didn't. I had no idea there was
Just
a wait.
wait for next week when I make you do Splatterpunk Season 3.
Oh, God.
You're like, I killed everybody off.
good.
There's nothing left.
Everyone's
What do I do?
dead. It's Monroe's book tour. That's the whole series. But yeah.
It's actually it's like a comedy about her, like a sitcom about like the book tour and like the people that she brings along with it. And it's like really it's really upbeat and fine and normal. It's like the Office
really
style
upbeat
comedy.
and fun. There's not as much comedy in this season as there was in season 1, but I think there's a lot more pathos, right?
I think
there's more
you could do a lot of comedy with like
emotions.
Stephan and Stephan, I think.
Yeah. I think that they would still, their relationship is the show. I think if that's why I was like so hard, because I was like, I can't break Stephan out of prison.
Yeah.
That's hacking.
I thought you would do that, but
right?
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. I like the body thing, and I was wondering. I like the way you did it. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. But I was wondering if you were thinking when you were making it. Would you have the reveal later about the body being like this horrible mangled corpse? And like
I was thinking about leaving it in silhouette, you know?
Yeah.
And for most of it, and you just hear a voice, and it's never it's not confirmed or denied that it's Stephan, right? It just is a voice, and it sounds kind of like him, but it also could be someone else.
Yeah.
And then like episode 3 or 4, right? That the murder puppet like just falls into frame, and you see it in all its glory, and it's just this horrible thing that he's been working on this whole season, you know?
Yeah.
But I figured for the pilot, you want to get the murder puppet in, you know? It's fun for the audience.
And maybe for the way he gets caught in the end is like he decides the last piece, the heart, needs to be Monroe's heart.
That would be good. That the last piece needs to be hers. That works. That's a very good idea. I can't believe I didn't think of that. She killed him. And as you probably figured out, she was the one in the black veil in the execution room.
Oh, I forgot that happened.
Yeah. She was the only one who cared. Right? Like by the end of his life, she was his only friend, you know?
Yeah.
Cuz
you could have like flashbacks of like them in jail, and like she gets all of her book material from him, and he's just like fine telling her.
Yeah. He's happy. He's not going to reveal anything about Stephan. He's not going to like incriminate his friend, but he's happy to talk about the details of his grisly murder spree, right? Otherwise. And like over time they actually, become friends, and she like buys him, chips, right? And he like maybe tacitly one time like mentions his favorite kind of potato chip, and the next week she brought a bag for him, right? Like something like that, where she knows that he's a horrible person and he's, not a good guy in any sense of the word, but she is just so damaged, right? That she, feels like this is the only guy that I can really get along with, Yeah, and that's the whole That's one of the themes of the show, is just, like, moving on, right? Like, and realizing, right? Like, maybe I am fucked up, but I need to move on from the past. I can't allow it to control me. Because that's what Monroe does, and that's what Stephan does, right? Is they allow the past to control them in very different ways, obviously, but, you know. Mm-hmm. And Lee is the only person who possibly has an ability to move on. Also, I do kind of want it to be like I want Monroe to kind of be like who's the guy who hunts Michael Myers in the Halloween movies? Just like kind of an almost like epic rivalry between Stephan and Monroe, right? Like where one is, the other will always be, right? And they're always just like, it's like the Batman and Joker of this universe is these two characters just fighting throughout decades, you know? But that's my show. That's Splatterpunk season 2. I think it's fun. I think it's all sorts of fucked up, but it's a serial killer show. It should be fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be weird if it wasn't fucked up, in my humble opinion. And I really like that the sand garden idea.
That part's really messed
thinking
up.
about yeah.
Crazy
I was
stuff.
like, dude. I was just like thinking casually one day. I was just like, what can I do? What would be cool for Monroe to have on her desk, right? And I'm like, oh, what if she has sand garden that was like the cremated ashes of Stephan? That would be fucking sick, dude. So yeah. Because that's all sorts of fucked up, and I think shows how fucked up Monroe is.
Post-credit scene,
that's
or like
Ooh.
during credit scene, you have her pouring more sand into the sand garden and raking it.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, she gets a second one. Ooh, or twice as big, so that they can be together forever.
Mm-hmm. Mixes their ashes.
But yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob? Good. We already did that part. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and enjoy. Episode 250, baby.
Yeah, it's gonna be a special one. Might be a return of a famous, long, forgotten character. If you don't know who it is, maybe look back 100 episodes from the next one, and you'll have your answer. But until then,
Jones.
Yeah, it's Tourniquet Jones. Until then, we'll see you next time.